My daughter's hands trembled as she tore open the box my parents had sent her, and within seconds her face went pale. She froze, staring at what was inside, then whispered in a voice that chilled me to the bone, "What is this?" For a moment, the entire room felt heavy, like the air itself had stopped moving. I rushed closer, my heart pounding, but before I could even peek inside, she slammed the lid shut and clutched it to her chest like it was something forbidden. Want to know what my daughter found in the box and how it sparked my biggest revenge? Hit like, subscribe, and share, this ending will shock you. I stared at her, confusion mixing with fear. "Sweetheart, show me what's in there," I begged, but she shook her head violently, her little eyes wide with terror. My parents had always treated me like the family's disappointment, mocking me for every choice I made, and now, after years of silence, this was the first thing they sent? A package for my daughter? My stomach churned as a sick thought entered my mind. What if they hadn't sent her a gift, but a message? "Victoria, that's me, the so-called failure of the family. The one they said would never make it, never succeed, never matter. They always favored my brother Ethan, the golden child who could do no wrong, while I was left out, belittled, and ignored. But this box, it felt like something darker, something personal." "Mom, I don't want it," my daughter whispered. Again, pushing the package toward me with trembling fingers. When I finally lifted the lid, my breath caught in my throat. Inside was something that wasn't just cruel, it was a twisted reminder of my past, one they knew would cut deeper than any insult, and right there, I realized this wasn't just a package. It was a warning, but what my parents didn't know was that I had been quietly building something of my own, something powerful enough to turn this game around. And soon, they'd regret ever sending that box. My hands shook as I held the package, staring at the cruel reminder inside. It wasn't a toy, not clothes, not money, nothing a grandparent would lovingly send to their granddaughter. No, this was something far worse. It was my old report card from high school, the one where I had failed math and been mocked endlessly for being dumb. And taped to it was a note, written in my mother's sharp handwriting, "Don't let your daughter end up like you." I felt my chest tighten. My parents had waited years, just to stab me in the heart again, this time through my daughter. They hadn't sent her love, they had sent her humiliation. "Mom," my daughter whispered, her voice cracking. "Why would Grandma send this to me?" I forced a shaky smile, but inside I was burning. My parents always wanted to remind me of my failures, to keep me small, to make sure I never believed I could rise above them. But they had no idea who I had become when I walked away from their toxic world. "Sweetheart, don't ever believe them," I said softly, tucking the paper back into the box. "This doesn't define me, and it will never define you." But the truth was, that piece of paper wasn't just a reminder. It was fuel. Fuel for a fire I had been keeping hidden for years. Because while they mocked me, while they laughed at my dead-end job, and while Ethan flaunted his fake perfect life at every family gathering, I was working in silence. I was building something they never even imagined I was capable of. I remembered all those nights when my daughter was asleep, and I sat at my laptop, teaching myself everything from scratch: marketing, design, coding. Every failure turned into another lesson. Every insult became motivation. And slowly, my small idea turned into a business. That business turned into contracts. And those contracts? They turned into something so big, even Ethan would choke on his pride when he found out. But here was the twist: I had kept it all hidden. To them, I was still Victoria, the failure. The one who dropped out, the one who never got it right, the one they whispered about behind closed doors. That's why the package stung so badly, because my parents believed they still had power over me. They didn't know that I now owned the very company that Ethan's firm was desperately trying to land a contract with. They didn't know that while they sent packages to humiliate me, I was quietly becoming the key to their survival. I closed the box, I looked at my daughter and smiled, not out of pain anymore, but out of determination. "It's time they see the truth," I whispered. What I didn't know was that the perfect opportunity for revenge was just days away. A family dinner where Ethan and my parents would try to humiliate me in front of everyone, and that's when I would reveal who really held the power. The night of the family dinner arrived, and I could already feel the storm brewing before I even stepped inside. The moment I entered the restaurant, all eyes turned to me. Ethan was seated at the head of the long table, smug as ever, with my parents sitting proudly beside him like he was the king of the family. The whispers started immediately. Victoria actually showed up, my mother muttered under her breath. Loud enough for half the table to hear. She probably couldn't afford to eat anywhere else, my father added with a cold laugh. I took a deep breath and forced a polite smile, holding my daughter's hand tightly as we walked to our seats. My parents had chosen the fanciest place in town for this gathering. They wanted to flaunt, to make sure everyone saw who held the power. But what they didn't know was that this dinner would be the last time they ever looked down on me. The waiter poured drinks, and as the plates clattered, the conversation shifted the way it always did, towards me. So, Victoria, Ethan said smoothly, twirling his glass of wine, are you still at that little job of yours? What was it again? Customer service? Or was it retail? His tone dripped with fake innocence, but the smirk on his lips gave him away. The table erupted in chuckles. My mother shook her head dramatically. Honestly, I don't know how you survive, Victoria. Look at Ethan, successful, respected, building an empire. And then there's you. My daughter gripped my arm tightly. I could feel her shame, her fear that I was being crushed in front of everyone. But what she didn't know was that I had been waiting for this exact moment. I leaned forward, keeping my voice calm. Actually, I've been working on something new. Ethan laughed so hard he nearly spilled his drink. Something new? Oh God, what is it this time? Another failed idea? Another waste of time? My father raised a hand. Ethan, let her speak, he said, but not out of respect. His eyes gleamed with anticipation, waiting for me to embarrass myself further. I stayed quiet for a moment, letting them all hang on the silence. My heart was racing, but I wasn't scared. No, I was savoring it. Because what they thought was humiliation was about to turn into the sweetest revenge. Just then, my phone buzzed on the table. A new email notification flashed across the screen with a subject line that made my breath hitch. Ethan caught it too, his smirk faltering for the first time, because the subject line read, "Contract approved, welcome to your new partnership, Victoria Enterprises." And Ethan's company name was right below mine. The table went quiet. My daughter's eyes widened in shock. My parents leaned forward, confused. Ethan's face drained of color. I let out a slow smile. Oh, I guess I should have mentioned, my little idea just became the very company your firm signed a deal with, Ethan. The silence was deafening. But this was only the beginning. The silence at the table felt heavier than the chandelier above us. Ethan's fork slipped from his hand and clattered against his plate, his smirk wiped clean like someone had slapped it off his face. My parents leaned forward, their eyes darting between me and him, not sure if they'd heard me right. What did you just say? My mother demanded, her voice sharp. I didn't flinch. I simply slid my phone across the table so the email was visible. It's official. My company, Victoria Enterprises, has finalized a multi-million-dollar partnership. And guess who's on the other side of that deal? Ethan's firm. Gasps rippled across the table. My father's jaw tightened. My mother's lips trembled, but Ethan looked like he had just been punched in the gut. This has to be some kind of joke, he stammered, his voice cracking. I leaned back in my chair, calm, collected. It's no joke. For years you mocked me, called me a failure, told me I'd never amount to anything. But while you were busy laughing, I was building. Every insult became fuel. Every night you left me crying was a night I spent working. And now, Ethan, you don't just have to face me, you have to work under me. Because my company holds the controlling terms of this contract. The table erupted in murmurs, my cousins whispering, my aunt covering her mouth in shock. My daughter looked up at me with wide, glowing eyes, pride shining in her face. Victoria, don't be ridiculous, my father barked, his voice rising. You're lying. You've always been a liar. There's no way you could have done all this without help. Who gave you the money? Who put you up to this? I met his glare with a calm smile. No one. I built it on my own. Every cent. Every step. Every deal. While you were busy calling me worthless, I was proving to myself I wasn't. Ethan slammed his hand on the table. This contract won't stand. I'll talk to the board. They'll never let me bow to you. I tilted my head, savoring his desperation. Go ahead. But here's the thing, they don't even know it's me yet. All they know is that the contract terms are locked. And guess whose approval is required for every future step? I tapped my chest lightly. Mine. The look on his face was priceless. My parents stared at me, speechless for the first time in their lives. The people who had built their entire identity around tearing me down were now cornered, powerless, and choking on their own arrogance, but I wasn't done. Because hidden in that contract was a clause that would make Ethan's downfall even worse, and when I revealed it, the whole family would see who truly held the power now. Ethan's face was already red, his fists clenched against the table. But I hadn't even revealed the sharpest blade yet. Everyone was waiting, leaning in, holding their breath. My daughter squeezed my hand under the table as if she could feel the storm I was about to unleash. I straightened my back and spoke slowly, letting every word cut deep. There's something you should all know about this contract. It's not just a partnership. It includes a performance clause. If Ethan's firm fails to meet the new requirements, control of their largest division automatically transfers to me. The table exploded in gasps. My aunt dropped her fork, my uncle muttered, "Oh my God," and my mother's eyes widened like she had just seen a ghost. Ethan shot up from his chair, his voice trembling with rage. "You can't do this to me. This is my life's work." I stood too, meeting him eye to eye. "You spent your life mocking me, Ethan. Stealing my spotlight. Telling me I'd never be anything. And now you're standing in front of the very person you said was worthless, realizing that your empire is hanging by a thread, and I'm the one holding the scissors." He stuttered, unable to form words. My father tried to speak, his voice breaking. "Victoria, you can't destroy your own brother. Blood is blood." I turned to him slowly, my eyes burning. "Where was that loyalty when you laughed at me? When you told me I was a mistake? When you sent my daughter a package just to humiliate me? You wanted me small. But I'm not small anymore." The room went silent. Everyone's faces reflected the same thing: shock, disbelief, and something else. Respect. For the first time in my life, they were looking at me differently. Not as the failure. Not as the joke. But as the one who had risen higher than they ever imagined. My daughter looked up at me, her voice trembling with pride. "Mom, you're amazing." I pulled her close and kissed her forehead. "No, sweetheart. We're amazing. Because everything I built for you." Ethan collapsed back into his chair, pale and defeated. My parents sat frozen, realizing the child they had cast aside now held the keys to their future and me? I didn't need to yell, didn't need revenge through anger. My success was the revenge. My silence all these years had been louder than their insults. And now, the truth was undeniable: Victoria, the failure, was the most powerful one in the family. I smiled, raising my glass. Here's to never underestimating the underdog again. The sound of my glass clinking echoed through the silence, sealing the moment forever. The underdog had won.